Good morning, SML, and happy Friday. The SML is back, baby. We got actual games to talk about. Listen, the Madden gods, they heard our prayer at the end of last episode, and they rejected it entirely and pushed the update back. So hey, no update for the SML, but we are back. We have SML football to talk about. As always, Matt joining me in the morning. What's going on, Matt?
Not much, man. I'm excited to have the SML back. I personally, when we prayed, I wasn't quite sure it would get fulfilled, but it did get fulfilled. Not in the way we wanted, but it is sure nice to load up Twitch and see a bunch of SML games going on.
Look, it was answered one way or the other. Either way, we got the SML back. All right, so with that said, we have a bunch of SML news to cover, and I mean a bunch of SML news to cover. So why don't we talk trades first? We've had a handful of big trades, and all right, let's just go with the elephant in the room. There's been no trade bigger than the Jets and the Browns trade. I almost said Jaguars for a second. Jets and Browns trade. 2 first-round picks going to the Browns in exchange for David Njoku and Kareem Hunt. Here to talk about it is DW. What's going on, DW?
Hey, what up, fellas?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped to be here.
Glad to have you.
So we just talked about details. We just talked about that. So DW, give me all right, people have been kind of talking like, oh, you overpaid. And you know what? I kind of have to agree, but let's walk through your mindset for that.
Yeah, so it all started out well, I needed a running back first. And I looked through, several guys in the league. I even contacted guys like Future. I thought about maybe going with David Montgomery. I even ran with him a little bit, scrimmages and whatnot there from Chicago, just because, and ask him if he was available. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of Montgomery, and so it came back to looking at a bunch of other backs, and I knew I was loaded with picks. And so my very first thing was, all right, I'm going to ask Bomber, because I know Bomber's already put out in chat that Hunt was available for a decent price. So I asked him, and I automatically threw out the first right off the bat, and he's like, oh yeah, we're in for that. And then I have 2 firsts, so I let him pick. I was like, look, you can have mine, or you can have Seattle's. And then, as that's all going on, then in real life, the Jets go and trade their tight end, Herndon, to the Vikings. So I have no tight end on my team. Like, my 2 backups are just awful. I mean, they're young, but they're super slow. They can't catch. It's just bad all around. So before, the whole thing with even coming in with these extra picks with Bomber and going after Njoku, I reached out to other guys. I reached out to Finns. I was trying to get his backup. I knew he wasn't going to let go of Fant. So I tried to get, I can't even pronounce the guy's name. He's like 88 speed. He's pretty decent, but he needs a lot of work. I also reached out to D Muse, was trying to get Irv Smith, because back in the last cycle, I traded for Irv Smith that final season, and he's just awesome to have. And I also reached out to Faz and tried to get Knox off of him, but none of those guys really wanted to move any of their tight ends, so I was kind of stuck. And so I reached out to Bomber, and I'm like, hey, dude, I need a tight end. I would love to have Njoku. I was like, is he available at all? And, at first Bomber's like, nah. It's like, I'm probably going to keep him. He's pretty young and, pretty decent, which he could have just been shopping him up to me, which is fine. But then I was like, you know what? I really, really want a decent tight end to complement just my passing game and everything else. So I offered a first for it, and here we are.
All right, so I just looked up the Jets' future picks and their status. Coming into the year, the Jets had 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, their third, 2 fourth-round picks, a fifth, 2 sixths, and a seventh. So, I mean, loaded in absolute picks. Gotta be honest, and I kind of feel stupid. I really thought you were trading this year's first and a future first, which was like making it worse in my head. But I just realized that you just traded the 2 first-round picks that you had this upcoming season, which is like, okay, now I kind of can okay, maybe it's not as bad as I was thinking originally.
Well, hear me out for a second here, too, because I know Dan keeps saying that I traded for a backup tight end. And yes, he's a backup tight end for the Cleveland Browns. There's no doubt. I mean, Hooper is the number 1 guy there. And, he's a beast. But Njoku's 25 years old. The dude is 6'4". He's 85 speed, 90 excel, and his catching is decent. Needs a little bit of work, and stuff like that. But I can mold him, and build him up and dev him up to be a really good, tight end. And I'm going to have him for probably, 5 or 6 seasons here at least. So in my mind, it was totally worth. I mean, all the other holes that I have on the Jets, I'm just trying to fill spots at this point. I was like, man, this is a no-brainer. I mean, I'll trade the two first. It's not going to hurt me that bad. I'm loaded. You see all the other extra picks I've got. Now I know the first round picks are huge here, and especially because I've seen like a lot of these rookie classes are pretty beefed up. But I'm willing to take a chance here, so that's why I made the move.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here because I was probably the biggest, loudest, maybe not the biggest, but I was definitely the loudest critic of this trade. I thought, unlike Meats, I thought I had the trade wrong, but I had it wrong in a different way than Meats. I thought it was just one first round pick for the both of them. When I saw there was a second one, I became a little shocked because I was having trouble feeling like either one of them was worth a first round pick, maybe in Njoku, but I didn't really feel like either one was worth it, let alone two. And plus in the SML first round picks, because we play for so long, I feel like, and I haven't been here for the start of a cycle, but I feel like this draft, this one and maybe the next one are probably the most important drafts because they're the first rookies you're going to get and you're going to have them for so long. But and it was Noel's pick and he struggled last cycle and you were kind of in the middle gray area. That part of that was due to your division, but that didn't really improve this year. But you and I had a talk, and part of this, and you said it in chat, is you're a Browns fan, and you're a fan of these guys. These are your players. You're on your favorite team in real life. And Njoku is not a backup tight end in Madden. He is better than Hooper, so you got the starting tight end, in my opinion. But if you're a Browns fan and you want your players and you pay a premium price for them, the game's about having fun. And from a competitive standpoint, I don't like the trade. But you have your franchise quarterback. You're not going to be in the race for one of those in the first round. You've got a lot of young pieces. Maybe you'll get away with it. But when we had that talk and you said, well, I'm a Browns fan, these are my guys, that kind of swayed me towards doing it rather than settling for, maybe a David Montgomery or something on a team you don't really care about. I'm a little less critical of it.
Well, honestly, I mean, do you feel that a first for Kareem Hunt? Do you feel that if that was just a loan in the Njoku trade, was that a bad trade in your mind?
A first for Hunt?
Yes.
I do. He's 26. He's just star. And I'm basing this off of where I anticipate your pick and where I anticipate Noel's pick. Now, I kind of look not so smart because out of the gate, you're both doing great. You're 2-0, looking sharp. Noel just lost his first game in a close game with D-Muse. He's 2-1. So depending on if those picks are in the later round or in the later portion of the first round, like maybe in the 19 to later, after that, not so much. But if either one of those picks turns into top 12, I have a hard time justifying that in the first draft of the cycle for a 26-year-old non-superstar halfback.
Yeah, I can agree with you there, but here's my other thinking is last year I came in second season, took over for QB, and I had Eckler. And Eckler was the same exact age last year. So basically we're at the same, if you were to put in where I came in last year, that's this year for this cycle. He's the same exact age as Hunt. And there's really not a huge major difference between the two of them. I mean, one, I think, is Eckler a superstar or is he just a star? I can't remember.
I think he's a superstar.
He might be. I don't know if he was last year, though, when I was using them. I can't remember. But I don't know. Hunt, to me, is just, he's everything I want in a back. I mean, and also talking with Bomber, I think, Bomber might have spiced up the deal for me a little bit in trade talks because he wasn't going to let go of either one of those for anything less than a first. It just wasn't going to happen. And me being a diehard Browns fan, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a lot of fun if I get to play with at least two guys who I love in real life. Like this, it'll make the cycle fun. It's exactly, you nailed it on the head when we were talking in chat private. So I don't know. I'm happy with it. I know that a lot of people disagree with it and think that I overpaid and everything else, but I couldn't be happier. And both are playing great for me right now. So
I just want to interject real fast. Austin Eckler is an 85 overall. He's a star dev, 26 years old. I don't know what Dan's asking price is. but I don't think he's going to get what Kareem Hunt got. I mean, Kareem Hunt's probably a better back. I don't know about individual attributes, but Hunt's 2 overall higher. You'd think that, maybe has better attributes too. Personally, I'm willing to eat my words, and I'm willing to call this a wash at the moment. I'm also leaving myself room to flip-flop either way, depending on how things turn out. DW, if you turn around and these 2 players help you make the playoffs, then okay, yeah, I'm in. That's a good trade. On the flip side, if you turn around and your pick's going to be top 10 and Noel's pick is going to be top 5 or top 10 as well, then I'm thinking, okay, it's the first draft of the cycle. You've got at least 7 seasons to develop a rookie. Probably should stick with the pick. So I'm leaving myself room to go on either side of this fence here at the end of the season.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, I got no problem with it. I'm happy. So, I mean, normally, with trades, you want both people to go away feeling good about the trade. And I think Bomber feels good because, I mean, that Browns team, he needs depth. I mean, he's going to, because he's not going to be able to keep all those guys on the team. At least I don't think so. So I know those picks helped him out a ton. And, of course, I have a young team coming up, but I've got a lot of really young talent that has, I've got a lot of speed in the secondary and, a lot of young players on my line and everything else. I mean, I just need time. So to me, I wouldn't mind bringing in some veterans and just, helping me win now. That's what I was kind of looking at. And I mean, it's so far so good, but we'll see what happens the rest of the season.
Yeah. I mean, you guys got anything else to say about that trade? I think we covered it pretty well.
No, I'm glad DW's happy. I'm sure Bomber is, and we'll see how it all pans out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it really is going to be dependent on where those picks are and the players that come out of those picks, I think. If they turn around and end up being 2 offensive linemen that are normal dev, then okay, whatever. All right, moving on. We got another person in this room right now that has made a trade. This one just happening a couple hours ago at the time of recording. The Patriots got Deontay Johnson, and the Steelers got J.C. Jackson. Matt, you are our Steelers owner. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I was shopping my receivers. I took the Steelers for a lot of reasons, and I liked the young wide receiver core. I was excited about it. I kind of looked into the thought of, well, I've got some trade assets with one of them. Everybody really wanted Claypool, and I was really hesitant on that. I actually wasn't talking to anybody about any of them until week 2, when the Pats, I think he actually played UDW, and his receivers were absolutely terrible. It was you. He lost 31-3, talking about Sherm, and his guys were dropping everything. And I thought, you know what? Let me see this guy's probably desperate for a wide receiver. Let me just throw Deontay Johnson out there because he's the oldest of my receivers. I like Juju as my route runner and Claypool as my physical specimen of just freak. He's like DK Metcalf, just not as good. And we got to talking, and we threw a couple of multiplayer scenarios, but we couldn't make it work. And we just decided to go Deontay for J.C. Jackson straight up, and I couldn't be happier. I've got my number 1 corner now.
So both players are 25 years old. They're both star dev. But J.C. Jackson is 4 overall higher. And again, overall doesn't tell the full story. I'm just looking at overall right now. How did you get Sherm to be like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll send you a better player for Johnson?
I just figured that he has depth at corner. He's got Gilmore, JC, Jonathan Jones, who's 27, 83 overall, 93 speed. We all know what Gilmore is capable of. He's got Jawan Williams, who's a big, tall, physical corner. He's not fast, but he's big, tall, and physical. I liked him last cycle. And I thought he might be vulnerable. I don't want to say that this trade was terrible for him because, again, he had depth in a position where and he was weak at a position where I had depth. So I think I caught him at the right time following that, beat down that DW gave him and his receivers underperforming. And we got it done. I was a little surprised. I thought he would up the ante. Everyone I've tried to sell Deontay to says, well, what about Claypool? But he didn't mention Claypool. He was all in on Deontay, and we got it done.
DW, you got anything to add about that?
If I could just add in on that, having just played him, I mean the score looks bad, but honestly, he ran really well against me. And Matt called it. His receivers were just dropping wide open passes left and right, which were killing him. And that's why the score looks so bad. Is he punted the ball? I don't know how many times, maybe 5 or 6 times in that game because they kept dropping passes on crucial downs. I think adding Deontay Johnson to that team is going to help him out a ton.
I'm gonna give the Steelers an A+ for this. I think it's a fantastic trade. I don't value individual wide receivers unless they're X Factor or superstar or like 98 speed too highly versus DBs. I mean, you don't really have to. I mean, you don't use them. I guess you could if you wanted to. So they're kind of off doing their own thing. It's more important to have a higher overall guy at corner, I think, than at wide receiver. And they're both going to develop. You would think if we play 7 seasons, they'll both be 32. You would think they'd be serviceable the whole time. But the Patriots, I'm gonna give them like a C- on this one because I just think I'm like you did what you felt like you needed to do to help the team out. But you're trading away a good young corner in a division that has Stephon Diggs and Jalen Waddle, and I'm assuming Elijah Moore is going to be good. So it's like you probably need the DB help more than you need the wide receiver help.
Yeah, and part of this, I agree. And in my opinion, Deontay, maybe that was just my view of him because I have Juju and I have Claypool. He was just my slot guy. I felt confident I could replace that in the draft. I also realized that I need a quarterback and an offensive line, and if I also need a corner, I don't have enough picks for that, and I don't have enough assets for that. So the fact that I got JC, who I would love to have had last cycle, I've made that very clear. He actually had a pick for me in my Week 3 game, his debut. Now that means when I go into the draft and free agency, I don't have to be dead set on a corner. I can look at some of my other more urgent needs. So again, I think both sides are happy. Deontay Johnson did get hurt in his debut with the Patriots, but just for the game. But I do think Sherm came away happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you can trade your third wide receiver for a long-term starter, it's a W. Like you said, yeah, I mean, you could turn around and then draft that opposite corner in the first round, and all of a sudden now you've got your 2 starting corners for the whole cycle. But then again, if you want to wait, I mean, you now use that pick on a linebacker, or not that you need linebackers or anything, but you just replace Johnson, anything like that. So I think it gives you tons of flexibility.
Absolutely.
All right, I guess we'll move on. Another pick involving a another trade involving a first-round pick. The Browns were sending their first-round pick, and they sent it to Washington for Matthew Ioannidis. I think it's a pretty solid trade just looking at it. I don't know if Ioannidis is worth a first-round pick. He's 27. He's 84 overall. He's a star dev. But you would assume Cleveland's first-round pick is going to be in the late 20s or 30s even.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was probably just a situation where Bomber had so many picks and he had his eyes set on somebody and he just wanted to get the deal done. Ioannidis is 27. He's only 84 overall. I don't see him going up too much. He appears, I don't know if Daddy Leagues is accurate this time. It says he has a broken jaw, but I don't know if that's accurate. He is very strong, 98 strength. And that last year, at least, was pretty big. I had Taven Bryan, who was really strong and wasn't good at anything else, and he played really well. His interior of his line is his weakness, if you really can call it that. But I think here he had an abundance of picks. His pick's probably not going to be all that great. He found a weakness. He's got to be in win now mode with this team. I don't necessarily like it, but I can't really dislike it either based on where his pick's going to be.
He was talking about taking his 3 first-round picks that he was going to have coming up and trading up in the draft. Now he takes one of those picks and gets a starting DT, you would assume, for at least 3 seasons, if not more. and he still has 2 first-round picks to work with. So plenty of flexibility to go with in that Browns, kind of stemming from that Jets trade.
Yeah, DW, what do you think about this one?
I just think it's awesome for Bomber. I mean, I'm really happy that he also traded his pick and didn't trade any of the 2 that I gave him. I think that's a win for Bomber there. But I mean, it's also not a bad trade, for NYT is the football team, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, no, and I like it. I mean, dude, that Browns team is so stacked, and now he's got an 84, overall 98 strength DT right there in the center of his line. I mean, that's pretty. It's a win-win for me.
Yeah, and NYT has an abundance of linemen. He had to get rid of one. He can't physically fit them all on the line unless he runs the 5-2, which he's not going to do. He had to get rid of one of them. So on his end, I mean, I don't know if he would have got a better deal for Ioannidis. I think he could have traded Allen or Payne if they are both tradable, or one of them is tradable. I'm not quite sure, and gotten more. But I'm sure he wanted to hold on to them. So I think he got a really good price for Ioannidis, who was just the odd man out.
Yeah, I do think Bomber might have overpaid a little bit, but like you said, he's got a wealth of picks. NYT probably would have taken less. I haven't spoken to him about it, but he probably would have taken less just given the fact that he had an abundance at that position. But I think, honestly, it's a good trade for both teams. So Washington replaces their first-round pick, which they lost in another trade, which we're about to get to now. The Packers are getting the first-round pick from Washington in exchange for Jordan Love, the quarterback. 22 years old, only 68 overall, but, quarterbacks are worth a lot.
Yeah, I don't have a quarterback, so at DW, you do. You have a nice young one. I'm going to let you start.
Alrighty. Well, so beginning of this whole entire, before we all picked our teams and everything, Bomber had me pinned down as the Packers. So I went in kind of all in on the Packers there for a little bit for the first couple weeks when the game, was early released. And I love this trade only because I had, when I was thinking about taking over the Packers, I was probably going to bench Rodgers the first year and just go into fully developing Love and riding him out for the whole entire cycle. So I think NYT's got to be pumped about this. I mean, he's got his quarterback of the future, and he lost the first round pick, but he gained one from Bomber. I mean, I know that the picks aren't equal there, but I don't know. I think this is I think it's a great move for NYT for sure.
I think it's a great trade for both of them. I'm going to piggyback right off of that. I like that he replaced, just basically swapped first at the end of the day with the Ioannidis trade, which NYT has looked good. He's in a weaker conference in probably everybody's opinion. I don't think him and Bomber are going to be maybe too far off on their picks. Jordan Love's only 22, and I actually had inquired about Jordan Love as well. And Lawyer and I just never really got too far along in talks. He's a very nice 69 overall. He's got 90 throw power, a little bit of speed. He's got him the next 3 seasons for dirt cheap. I like it for both teams. If you're Lawyer, you got to trade him. I didn't see him shop him much. I don't know if they made a deal before we even started, before much even got underway. I don't know how long this deal was made, how long ago it was made, but I like it for both teams. So
I think not in a vacuum, because these two trades kind of work together. Basically, you're turning Matthew Ioannidis into Jordan Love. I think that's a win. However, if let's just say the Ioannidis trade didn't go through or something like that, and now you're trading a first-round pick for who was at the time a 68 overall. Star dev, so one good passing season away from superstar. Go look at the draft board. I know the draft boards weren't out when this happens. I think you gotta wait until the draft board comes out, because go look at the draft board right now. 3 of the top 4 players are quarterbacks. I don't think the top 3 teams, whoever they are in the draft, are all going to take quarterbacks. And now let's assume that NYT has a subpar season. He could be looking at a top 10 pick, and you've got 4 first-round graded quarterbacks in this draft. Jordan Love only has 90 throw power, which is solid, but it's not like 99. It's not 95. His accuracies are okay. It's star dev, so you got a bonus there. I think you might have gotten a better quarterback in the draft in the first round. especially with an early pick. But like you said, I mean, like I said, the two picks work together. So you know what? I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
Also, sorry, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
I'm just going to counter that with I totally agree. After seeing the QBs in scouting, but I don't think NYT is going to be bad enough to get one of those quarterbacks, and unless he traded Deron Payne or Jonathan Allen, I don't think he could have got a pick good enough to get one of them. And maybe he didn't want to do that, but I also don't think NYT sat there and thought, well, I'm not any good. I'm going to have a good pick. I'll draft one then. I think he thought, hey, Jordan Love's the missing piece on this team. Let me get him. He's 22. I'll build him up. His awareness is affecting his overall. We talked about this last week. 63 awareness. That's probably why he's as low as he is. His throwing attributes aren't terrible. So I just think NYT bet on himself here.
DW, I think you had something to say.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say there is I completely lost my train of thought. Where I was going is NYT didn't know what the draft class was, though, when he made that trade. And you're sitting there with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your only decent quarterback, if you won't even call him decent. Your only quarterback, really, on that team to roll with. I mean, I don't know. What's their backup's name?
Well, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
What does he look like this year? Is it pretty bad? I mean, would that make him want to trade a first, to get a cycle quarterback?
I'm on the league right now. I can check.
I don't even see it Taylor Heineke on his depth chart. So I'm assuming he's really bad. I'm assuming he cut him or he put him on the practice squad.
Yeah, and I mean, and NYT did not, you couldn't see the draft classes before that. So I think this is a great move for NYT.
And there was no competition. I think this trade happened a long time ago. I think it happened behind closed doors. I didn't hear a lot of Jordan. I reached out to Lawyer. I never saw him post anything in chat. I asked him. I think NYT looked at this as, hey, if I get him now, yeah, I don't get to see the draft class, but I'm not having to fight all these other owners who need quarterbacks, myself included. A first round pick. Shoot, I'll take him, and I'll figure out the rest later because I was probably going to use my first round pick on a quarterback anyway, and I don't think I would have got one as good as Jordan Love.
That's a good point. And I'm thinking about it now. He's 22. He's already been in the league for a year, but he's 22. With Star Dev, if you go and dev him for the next 2 seasons, at that point he's 24. Well, the oldest rookies coming out of the draft are 24, and Jordan Love's going to have a 3-year head start on them. By that point, he's at least a 75, if not higher, at 24 years old, which you would think is like a mid first round quarterback pick. But I mean, there's a chance Jordan Love could be in the upper 80s at that point, just depending on how NYT's passing seasons go. So overall, I think it's a good trade. I think if it was just that trade by itself, I'm a little bit more skeptical. But when he's going to end up with a late first round pick because he's got Bombers pick anyway. So hey, no harm, no foul.
Agreed.
I think those two trades together is kind of masterful because you take a guy that you have like a lot of players at a certain position, and you now turn him into your future quarterback of the future, who is, like I said, I mean, he throws for 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. He's probably going to get superstar. So, all right, that takes us to our final trade that we're going to talk about today. And that one also happened just a few hours ago at the time of recording. Actually, that might have just happened, like maybe 2 hours ago. The Chiefs are sending Jerick McKinnon, a 2nd and a 3rd round pick. That third is a future pick. To the 49ers in return for a future 4th round pick and Raheem Mostert. Just on the surface, that's a lot going on there, but it was essentially Mostert, and he got McKinnon and a couple of picks. So Mostert's an extremely fast running back. I don't know how old he is. I think he's kind of old. But the 49ers are going to end up with a late 2nd and a late 3rd, and they still have, a backup if you want to start Sermon in Jerick McKinnon. So what do you guys' takes on this?
Yeah, I don't know about this one. Mostert is 29, but he's 97 speed. I don't see him. He's fastest running back in the game. I don't see him falling off too hard. I don't think 97 speed is an absolute elite super stud 6,000 yard running back like last year. But I just don't understand this trade for Fig. You're getting a running back that is also 29 in Jerick McKinnon. He's slower. What good is he? I don't even know why he's in this trade. I would have asked for a different position or maybe better picks, maybe 2 seconds. Um, I just don't understand the Jerick McKinnon piece of this unless Prime just required it. Their Prime's picks, I always say add around to elite players' picks. So in my opinion, it's a third to fourth. I think he could have got more for Mostert if he would have shopped him. He says he did, and he probably did. It just kind of probably got lost in the shuffle. But I don't know. He's got a plethora of running backs. He's got Bryce Love. He's got Trenton Cannon. They're both speedsters. I don't know who he's talking about that he likes so much as his backup running back. I'm guessing it's not Sermon since he's 86 speed. But I don't have a problem with him trading Mostert. I just don't know about this return. I don't know if I don't know if I'm more confused or more disappointed. I just don't like it.
I'm okay with the return because he was shopping him in chat for a few days, and nobody was really biting. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but I mean, I could have used Mostert, but I certainly wasn't interested. He's 29 years old. I wasn't going to give up anything too much for him. He's the fastest running back in the game, 97 speed, but I feel like speed is less important, especially at the running back position, than it was in years past. So, I mean, Prime obviously didn't like Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's 86 speed, and he was privately shopping him, sources tell me. But he's only 22 years old, so I guess Prime just doesn't see him as the back of the future with that speed rating. But obviously, Mostert's not the back of the future either. At best, he's a Band-Aid for that Chiefs team until Prime either signs one in free agency or drafts a running back.
Yeah, and DW, you were looking for a running back. Obviously, you mentioned that at the start of the show. What do you think?
I didn't go after Mostert because of his age, and also playing the game. I also agree that speed isn't what it was last year for running backs. I've also been talking to Figs behind the lines a little bit with some DMs and stuff because I took over the 49ers in Primer, and we both are doing the same thing. We're both running with Sermon as our starters for the halfback. He's only 86 speed, but he's got 93 Excel and a bunch of other really complementary stats. His juke and everything else is actually really really good. He's actually a decent back. The only thing I don't like about this is I don't see, besides the pick, and Matt, you already nailed it because it's basically a third and a fourth round. I think that he could have done better for Mostert than what he got from Prime. And let's be honest here, Prime's team is already stacked with speed, and now you're adding the fastest halfback in the game. I mean, that's pretty crazy there. So that's all I got for that.
Yeah, and I know the Niners are a little light on picks with the Trey Lance deal in real life. I know they're short. I'm sure that was a part of it. I'm just and I get that Mostert's 29, and maybe this was the only market for him. Maybe literally nobody wanted him. I find that hard to believe. I do agree the game isn't as favorable to a back like Mostert, but gosh, I'm surprised that was the best offer he got, and that might not be his fault. I'm just confused at McKinnon because I'm looking at his roster now. McKinnon's not better, in my opinion, than any of his halfbacks. And that's with Mostert gone. I just feel like that's an odd inclusion, and maybe he could have filled a different need, especially if he already likes his backup running backs or Sermon. McKinnon's 29. Where's he fit in this team? Is he even going to be on it at the end of this season? I don't know about that.
I'm not even focused on McKinnon because he was the third string running back in Kansas City. He's going to be at best the second string running back in San Francisco, I would assume, behind Sermon. Though at that point, I'd probably start Elijah Mitchell over him too. But I'm looking at, and I'm going to kind of disagree with you guys here. I kind of think Prime might have overpaid. And I know that it's going to sound shocking, but listen, Prime has a history of overpaying. It's a really smart strategy when you're as good as he is, because everybody knows that third round pick, that's going to be pick 60 and pick 90. So you know what you're getting, but on the surface, it looks like a second and third round pick. It looks like it could be pick 34, even though we all know that's not going to be the case. Prime loves overpaying, and it works for him. That's why people consistently still trade with him, despite everyone's like, don't trade with him. So I think it's a good trade. I think Figs got what he needed. I do think Prime might have overpaid a little bit, but that's what I expect from him. And the only reason I say that is because, like I said, running back speed is less important this year than it has been in years past. However, on the flip side of that, when you have Hill, Hardman, and now you've got Mostert out wide in like a 5-wide set, good luck. You're not covering it. So I think Mostert's main threat on this Chiefs team is in one of those situations where he's going up against a slot corner or one of the slowest corners on a guy's team, corner 3 on the outside, or Prime motions him out and he's playing out of the slot and he's going up against the linebacker. That's where Mostert is going to be the most dangerous, I think. I don't know if he's going to have a lot of success on the ground. We know he did last year. We saw what happened. He rushed for over 2,000 yards in season 1 for the 49ers. That's not going to happen again, but I do think Mostert does improve the Chiefs. I just don't know how much.
Yeah, and Prime did just run for 126 yards with Edwards-Helaire on 22 carries against Dan, and he had 1 touchdown. His long was only 47, so now that's a great stat line. 22 for 126. I think a lot of guys would take that, especially this year. But long of 47. I just wonder if maybe Prime said he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have the breakaway speed. He should have had 3 touchdowns, and he said, just give me speed, baby, and I'll just pay for it. So you could be right on the head that maybe he overpaid just because he was like, Edwards-Helaire ain't cutting it. Just give me speed, and he went for the fastest guy out there.
I feel like you just kind of contradicted yourself there. Like, do you need that breakaway speed when you can rush for 120 plus yards? Long of 47 with 86 speed. I mean, that's crazy. 86 speed. That's barely faster than most tight ends. And you don't see tight ends coming out of the backfield for that much.
I think Prime's thinking 47 should have been 77. Personally, that's my guess. I obviously don't know, but I feel like if a guy's rushing that well and you go out and potentially, in your view, overpay for a 29-year-old back when Edwards-Helaire is so young, is it because he thinks he should have had, instead of 126, he should have had 226 if he was faster? And maybe that's just not good enough. But Mahomes was 15 of 19 for 347 and 4 touchdowns. So who knows with this Chiefs team? It's ridiculous. I don't know how you cover them.
I think really what it is, it's just Prime wanted that player there. He said, give me more speed. People are going to fear me. And I mean, they already probably do anyway. But now you've got speed everywhere. You've got escape artist. You've got 2 97 plus speed wide receivers. And now you've got a 97 speed running back. Even if he's an average running back, people are still going to respect that speed.
Absolutely.
And it just, even if it just comes down to scheme over player, now you got defenses thinking about it. I don't really think anybody is scared of Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, see, I agree with Matt on this, though. I think that he's going to use him just situationally, if I could talk. Like throwing him out in the slot, because, God, that's such a weapon. That 97 speed against a linebacker is just ridiculous. And he still might just, roll with who he's got now for his main running back and just use, Mostert in those situations on passing downs. So that's what I think is going to happen there, but we'll see.
I mean, hey, his third string running back right now is Adrian Peterson. We've all seen what he can do with LeGarrette Blount, so you guys probably haven't, but everyone else in the league that's been around longer, everyone else around that's been in the league longer will know what I'm talking about. I think he won like Super Bowl MVP with LeGarrette Blount or something like 3 years ago. So it's probably a running back by committee room. I don't think any one of those guys is going to get like a large share of carries. I think it might be split 40-40-20 or something like that. You know Peterson's going to be in on the goal line because you just know Prime. He loves his power backs that close to the goal line. All right, so that's those were the 5 trades that we wanted to talk about. DW, you got anything else to add?
No, that's really it. And actually, I think I'm going to bounce and let you guys handle this from here on out. I'll catch up and listen tomorrow and hear the rest of the show.
Definitely,
So
DW.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. You are welcome anytime, friend of the show. Thanks for coming on. We'll see you later.
All right, see you, fellas. Yeah, no problem. See you guys.
There he goes. DW is gone. All right, Matt. So, like we said, SML has started. Let's go reactions week 1 and week 2. We'll start with week 1. Just give me your first reaction right off the bat.
My first reaction with week 1 was Dan lost. I didn't expect Dan to lose, and I think that's going to probably be the trend of this segment. He played NYT. It was a back and forth game. They only lost by 5, but I think I expected Dan to come out guns blazing, especially in a game where there wasn't a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of pass defense, and he's kind of was the passing guru last year. He was going to prove that passing was not dead. And he came out and lost. But overall, it's just tough. It's hard to really settle on a reaction. It's the first game or first week of a new game, and a new game unlike we've seen in a long time, on a completely new system with a new engine with the movement. But overall, I was surprised. I thought scores were a little lower than I expected. I kind of went on record. I thought Bomber Prime would be in the 50s and the 60s, and they were 34-28, which is, I think, still high scoring. But really, I think the scores were down a little bit. I think people are trying to find their groove. But the Dan one really stuck out to me. I think especially I thought he would torch NYT through the air, and he kind of did, but he didn't score a whole lot of points.
So the highest score, most offensive points scored in week 1 was 38 points. And that was Dump against Field. I want to put that in some perspective for you. We've had teams average close to 40, if not over 40 for a season. You've got probably a top 3 most explosive offense and offensive player going up against Field, who, it's no secret, has not been very good lately. And he only dropped 38 points. So I think it's really hard. It's kind of like NFL season, like weeks 1 through 4. It's hard to take anything away from it because it's just the extended preseason. It's some of these guys are playing their first games in Madden, in Madden 22, ever. Some of these guys haven't picked up the game before. So it's gonna be hard to really take anything away from these first couple of weeks.
Yeah, and looking at that Dump Field score, looking into the stats. Kyler Murray was 13 of 14, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, but 157 yards and 3 of his completions and 2 of his touchdowns went to Mr. Max Williams, a 27-year-old 78 speed tight end. I did not watch this game,
former Ravens
but
legend.
I'm very curious that how a 78 speed tight end caught 3 balls for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. Field's going to have to figure it out. That's not good.
I haven't watched the tape. I saw that stat, and I was just like, Max Williams used to be a Raven in real life, and I was like, my boy Max with 2 X's. He's a badass. So I'm just going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say it was just probably Field trying to get used to hit sticking and just missing. Because I don't think Max Williams is going to be burning anybody. So 50 yards a catch for 78 speed. That's just what pops into my head. I'd have to go back and actually watch that.
Yeah, and hit sticks are really risky this year. I've missed a ton trying to play like last cycle, so I had to figure that out.
As hard as usering was last cycle, it's even harder now. And it's even harder to get user tackles, let alone hit sticks. My main takeaway from week 1, I didn't see anything that surprised me aside from Chargers Washington. I thought everybody played the way I expected them to. Maybe I didn't expect Future to beat Colton by that much. 31-13 for the Bears over the Rams. But aside from those 2 games, I really didn't. I wasn't like surprised by anything. Now you get into week 2, maybe there's some more surprises. But just off the bat, I mean, has anything really changed?
Finn's lost to the computer in week 2. I don't know. But he says.
I asked if anything changed. Are you saying no?
Oh no. He says it. He says that that is not anything new. But I played the CPU Bills in week 1, and oh my God, they barely gained any yards on me. So I was kind of shocked that he lost to the CPU, who I kind of felt like is worse than ever. I had to stop running with Najee Harris. I had to come into a complete dead stop, wait for the defenders to catch up to me so I wouldn't beat him by more than 28. But I don't know. You know, looking ahead to week 2, there's not a whole lot that I noticed. Even things just are kind of going to status quo. Dump and Dom played a great game, honestly, RD beat the brakes off of me. That game wasn't even well. It was close for 3 quarters, but once it got out of hand, it really got out of hand. I was surprised. Prime and Bomber were playing at the same time, and both of them got tested by people you wouldn't expect. Prime beat October by 7, and Bomber beat ZZ by 6 in overtime.
I'm not saying October's going to win 10 games. I'm just saying that Ravens team's pretty good. And October is a former Bomber League Hall of Famer, so he's not a bad player. He's not going to win that many games either, but you know, I'm not. He ended up losing that game. Prime plays guys close sometimes. I'm not really reading anything into it. I do read more into the fact that ZZ played Bomber so close. That was an overtime game, and if we had college overtime rules, who knows? Because Bomber got the coin toss and scored a touchdown on that drive. ZZ, he's sitting at 0-3 right now. But what I saw from him in week 2, I don't know, man. He could make a run at some point. I mean, he's in the weakest division in the league. Yes, it's in the tougher conference, but I don't know, man. I could see ZZ winning this division. I mean, he's 0-3. He could win it this year.
Yeah, and he runs the ball really well. That's one thing I noticed when he played Bomber. He found the holes. What he liked to do was kind of run in between the tackles, and then he would find the hole to the outside, and Lindsey had enough speed to get there. He did that really well, and Bomber really didn't have an answer. I know he was without Myles Garrett, but he had Clowney. He has that Browns defense. He just couldn't stop him. And then I look at the Panthers blowout that ZZ just suffered, and Phillip Lindsay had 9 carries for 44 yards, but Mark Ingram had 11 carries for 30 yards. I'm not sure if Phillip Lindsay got hurt, but he was obviously way more productive, and he's the 10th leading rusher in the SML right now, and he only got 9 carries and a very efficient 9 for 44 yards. So I'm not sure what happened there, but he can run. He can't pass, though. He threw 5 interceptions.
Yeah, good old ZZ. Listen, if he's can we just talk about how ZZ just missed the free agent draft like completely? He didn't even see the order for like 24 hours later, and then he's like, "When are we getting free agents, boys?" And we had just all just signed him. Like he didn't even get to send his list in because he didn't even see the order for like 24 hours.
That's amazing.
That just made me chuckle. This classic ZZ. I mean, yeah, like you said, I don't really think there's a lot to talk about. But I know we're not really talking about week 3 because technically week 3 just started. But man, I can't look past it. Dan is 0-3.
Yeah. I think that's
sums it up.
Yeah, I think that's the storyline so far, but I think people need to be careful. This is my first SML start of the cycle. I don't remember how last cycle started, but I think people need to be really careful. Dan's going to fix this. It is surprising, though. I think what's most surprising to me is outside of the NYT loss, it's surprising to me how he's losing. Because he did, against NYT, he did throw for a lot of yards. But against Grams in week 2, 158 yards, 21 attempts, 13 completions, 158 yards, 1 touchdown. And then against Prime, it wasn't any better. And Prime's got one of the worst defenses in the league. He posted his stats. It's not good. And that personnel-wise, that defense isn't good. And he comes into that game, and I'm trying to find the box score here. I don't think he had a very good day. 152 yards on 14 completions and 2 interceptions. So that's my only concern. I would, if he lost all 3 games, like he lost the NYT game where he threw for 300 and something yards, I think that's different. He's at the last 2 games, he's thrown for 300 combined in those last 2 games. He's not talked about identity, but and Herbert's not bad. I'm a little worried about that, but I do think Dan's going to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's worried about the Chargers, and it helps that we got 17 games this year. And I do think he's going to finish the year out strong. He's got a streak here. Weeks 12 through 17, he plays Finns, Spooky, KJ, Prime again, ZZ, and Finns again. So he's gonna win his at least 5 of his last 6 games, and he's gonna be fine. He's gonna make the playoffs. Don't worry about it. He might not win the division, but he's gonna make the playoffs.
Okay, before we move on, true or false? His next 2 games are against RD's Raiders and Bombers Browns. True or false? He has to win one of those to make the playoffs.
Man, I want to...
He's 0-5 if he loses both.
I'm going to say false. I think 11 wins probably gets you in. That's 11-6 this year. Yes, that makes his margin for error extremely small. But do I think 0-5 cooks one of the best players in the league? I think we saw it a couple of times last year where a really bad start to a season doesn't necessarily mean you have a bad finish to your season with QP. QP was like, I don't know, he was like 1-6 or something, and won the final 10 games of the season, and ended up making the playoffs. Lost to me in the playoffs, by the way. That part's unimportant. But no, that's so tough. I'm going to say false because, yes, there's a very solid chance now that he starts 0-5, and you're looking at his schedule coming in the year. You're like, he's no worse than 2-3 at week 5. But now you're looking and saying, hey, dude might be 0-5. But then he comes out and he's got 0-2 October, 0-3 Sherm, 1-2 Tiny. That's what is that? 3 wins right there. That gets you back to 3-5. Okay, now you got something working with. Now you got some confidence going into that Week 10 game against the Vikings. Now you got confidence going into Week 11 versus Steelers. Then you got you're going to win 5 of your last 6 games. I really do think it's going to take at least 11 wins in the AFC every cycle. Every season. So that really, like I said, no margin for error after 0-5, but
yeah,
I don't think he wins both those games, but he's not going to lose both of them.
Yeah, I don't want to lean towards false either, but I think it's really going to depend on how he loses the games, because he's going to have to play RD again. So if he just gets break speed off of him and it's not even close, I know it's the end of the year that they play again, but he's gonna have to. If it's bad, I don't know. Can he beat him? I feel like Prime could have scored a lot more than he did. So I don't know if he can beat Prime unless he figures it out. He does have a nice schedule after that, outside of Dom. Maybe myself. I don't know. I got to figure some things out, but I think he's got to be competitive in those games to give me confidence that he can bounce back, even if he loses both of them.
I agree with you, and I want to hit pause on this conversation, and let's come back to this next week, because I think by the time we record next week, It'll still be in week 5 or early week 6. He probably will not have played the Ravens yet. And that Ravens game doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens in week 4 and 5. That Ravens game is going to tell me what's up with Dan this season. Not this cycle, but this season. If he loses to the Ravens, stick a fork in him. He's done.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if he beats RD and Bomber, if he loses to the Ravens, he's done. I'm just going to put that out there. But do I think he's going to? No, I don't. I don't. Even at 0-5, I don't think he would.
Yeah, he's got some work to do, and I'm really excited to see. All of his games have been close. He could easily be 3-0. So maybe 2-1. I don't know. Yeah, when Prime's offense was cooking, it was cooking, and Dan didn't have an answer. But 2-1, maybe 3-0 if he gets things go a little bit differently in that Chiefs game. But he's not far off. I'm curious to see how he does against some really, really elite competition in RD and Bomber.
Okay, so Dan, since you're listening, get ready to listen next week too, because we're coming back to you next week. All right, so now I want to do, for our final segment, we're going to start something that we're going to do every episode, that at least every episode that we have SML football, which theoretically should be until next August. We're going to do and go look ahead at the SML schedule for the next 3 weeks, because that's usually how many weeks we do between episodes. And I can't come up with a name for this yet, so maybe the listeners can help. Maybe you can help. I was thinking about something like Locked In, just something simple like that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through. We're each gonna pick one game, a different game, of each of the next 3 weeks, and we're gonna lock it in. We're gonna say this person's gonna win, and we're gonna keep track of that. And then I think at the end of the year, we'll the loser buys somebody a sandwich or something. Going forward, though, we're gonna have rules for this. Not like, okay, I'm gonna call in QB stud here. We're gonna have guidelines for this. Okay, it's not just gonna be like, okay, Prime's playing Finns, I'm gonna pick Prime. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna stay away from games like where a guy might be favored by 2 touchdowns. I'm not gonna say you can't pick a team that's favored, because that would just be unfair. But let's try to avoid blowout potential games, and try to pick a game where like it should be a competitive game, or it should be really close together. And so I know we're almost like halfway done week 3 already, even though we just advanced a couple hours ago. But we'll do weeks 3, 4, and 5 tonight. And Matt, I'll let you pick your week 3 game first.
Yeah, so I just refreshed Daddy Leagues. I have not looked at the chat during this recording at all. So if there's been tweets or anything about any of these games that are currently 0-0, I swear I have not looked at them. I made this prior to the show. I am going to take, as my lock for week 3, I am going to take QP's Lions over Akupa's Ravens. Now, you just gave this whole spiel about favorites. Now, it is 2-0 against 0-2, but that's a very competitive 0-2 Ravens team. And QP has played well, but I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm locking in QP. I don't think he loses.
Yeah, that's I'm okay with that, because that's in real life, we're about to go into this game this weekend, and you're going to think about the Ravens being heavily favored, just based on roster, just on the paper. So, you know what? I'm fine with that. My locked in game of the week, I'm taking Lawyers Packers over Figs 49ers. Yes, Lawyers probably the favorite, but they're both 1-1, and you could argue that Figs has a better team for Madden, at least, if not at least comparable. But I like Lawyer as a player better.
I like that pick. He's been playing well.
All right, let's do our week 4 game then. As I pull up week 4 real fast.
I'll let you go first.
Well, now you put me on the spot, and I didn't do any research ahead of time. I'm struggling here. All right, sorry, Figs. I'm going back to you. I'm taking Noel's Seahawks over Figs again. Noel, I know, has been playing well, but you know, there's still that chance that he goes 4-11 or 6-11 or whatever. This 17 game schedule is screwing me up. So bad thinking about these records. So I'm locking in Null in week 4.
Yeah, you took mine, which I guess is okay. I think I've beat down Figs enough on this show, and I want to stay in his good graces, so I'll just pretend that wasn't mine, actually. But I did come with a backup plan, and this might surprise people. This might bite me in the tail. But in the spirit of the show, we said we weren't taking any obvious ones. Give me Old Man Woods beating Grams. Panthers beat Cowboys.
I like that. That's a toss-up game from the start. Week 5, let's go back to you.
So in week 5,
So you put me on the spot.
Yeah, well, I have the week 5 matchup that I have pinned down here, and I am going to go and don't. I think this is fair. I'm going to pick RD's Raiders over Future's Bears. Future is, in my opinion, a good player. I know RD is in the upper echelon, and he just tattooed me, but it was close for 3 quarters. But Future can hang. Justin Fields in this meta, I mean, God only knows what he's capable of. So give me RD over. I feel like there aren't going to be a lot of times where I get to pick RD where it's fair, but I think this one is.
2 weeks ago, I'm telling you that this is an ineligible game. I'd be contesting this. Now Future's playing well, so you know what? I'm cool with giving that to. And then I'm looking here, easily game of the week. I don't even have to look at any of the other games. Bills Chiefs week 5. I mean, we got to get that game commentated or something. I'm locking in the Bills. Faz is going to beat Prime.
Wow. Yeah, I just talked about, I don't know how many times I'm going to be able to pick RD. How many times are you going to be able to pick Faz or Prime in Locked
often.
In or whatever we call it? Yeah. Wow, I missed that. I missed that period, not just in my overview of this segment, but just even looking ahead in SML action. Oh boy, suit up. I'm ready for that one. We need to get some commentary, and I'll nominate myself in that pool. Wow.
We got some good games in week 5. I'm just scrolling down the list right now. We got some good games coming up week 5. And that should, I think, be the Tuesday to Thursday advance. So
yeah, geez, you got Bomber Dan in there.
You got me versus Pauly.
That's big.
I'm probably gonna get blown out, but we're gonna be talking about it.
QP Dom, that's probably gonna be for first place in the North.
Oh, I didn't even see that one. Week 5 is a big week in the SML.
Wow, yes it is. It's like Christmas for us, week 5.
I'm
wow.
Loving the fact that we record on Thursday nights and we're going to be able to record right after week 5 is done.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's our locked in picks of the week. In week 3, Matt locked in the Lions. I locked in the Packers. In week 4, Matt locked in the Panthers. I locked in the Seahawks. And in week 5, Matt locks in the Raiders, and I locked in the Bills. So I think that about does it for us tonight. Matt, do you have anything else to add?
No, man, it's fun I had fun the last couple of shows, but this one was fun because there's actual SML content. Went over some trades, went over some reactions of games already played, and looking forward to games coming up.
SML is back, baby. We've been waiting for this too long, man. That offseason was way too long. EA, get your shit together, please.
Please.
All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you next week.